Ladies and gentlemen, what the government side is trying to do is uproot people's lives and create an unethical and unsustainable industry with what they're trying to propose. There are two main rebuttals that our side of the house is going to bring. They say meat consumption is unsustainable and unethical. However, in reality, what their house is proposing, the creation of large amount of farmlands is actually even more or unsustainable and more unethical, as we will delve in further later. And second of all, even if we were to subsidize and give time to people to shift industries, the sheer amount of demand that will suddenly arise from the shift of industries towards 100% crops will create an effect where there is not enough time to grow crops, and in the end world starvation would happen. Even if we give them the benefit of the doubt that there will be time to shift, growing crops takes a large amount of time and is unrealistic to shift at all. There are two main extensions that our side of the house is going to bring. First of all, farming for crops and the crops industry is not a sustainable and not an ethical type of industry. Second of all, the practicality of their side of the house is not realistic, as what they're doing is killing the industry, and there is a large impact where there are lots of vulnerable actors, which is the meat producers in general. First of all, we need to understand that at the problem that their side of the house has highlighted, that meat says that eating meat is immoral. However, in reality, what their government is suggesting is shifting towards an agricultural state. They blame ethics and unsustainableness around this whole debate. However, the very thing that they propose is not as sustainable as it seems. The production of vegetables takes up land and only fertile land, and in addition to that, they need pesticides and growth accelerants to produce it, and thus it will create an unsustainable environment because there are pollution happening towards the soil, there are pollution happening towards the water. The production of vegetable is not unethical as well, as many farmers that grow and produce these vegetables rely on the work of underpaid farmers. These workers deal with horrible conditions and receive nowhere near enough compensation. They work long hours and they can only sell a small amount of the vegetables that they produce. It is safe to say that none of these conditions are ethical. The mistreatment of and the failure to provide protection for farmer workers is honestly less ethical than the meat industry, meaning the consumption of produce that comes from the industry invalidates any moral superiority that could be gained from not consuming animal product. What is likely to happen when we follow their side of the house that a problem will arise. Since they're proposing the expansion of farmland, we need to use pesticides, we need to use growth accelerants, and it'll create an even nastier ecological impact. Since if we're going to expand farmlands, that means we're going to use even a larger amount of pesticides and growth accelerants, and in the end, it will seep into the earth, ruin the soil, and ruin the water. We need to remember also that the farming process, many living creatures dies every day for the production, since plowing and pesticide using kills moles, mice, snakes, lizards, and even insects, and thus rendering the whole ethicalness of killing meat for eating them useless, since we're killing these animals as well when we are planting vegetables. The result of following their side of the house, there are three main harms. First of all, the overuse of lands and the overuse of pesticides and chemicals, rendering turning into a problem with the environment. Second of all, the mass need of vegetables and greens is unsustainable, since if we were to shift from a 50-50 production to 100% production, it is unrealistic for farmers to produce enough to sustain the entire world. Third of all, there is an exploitation of farmers, which is one of the vulnerable actors instead of animals in this debate. On the other hand, our side of the house want people to eat meat, but in a sustainable manner, whether it is locally sourced, and the consumption of meat will shift towards something more or ecologic, since we are just producing enough for the local environment in a local place, and we want to shift towards less ecologically damaging meats like chicken and fish, and we want to create local and ethical suppliers instead of just destroying them as a whole. Our main argument is that uh, The crop industry and the farming industry is not ethical and unsustainable. If we were to switch to farming, even if we got government subsidy, the sheer amount of production necessary to produce alternative food source is unimaginable. We are shifting from 50-50% production to 100% consumption of grains. The result of this motion is that it is unsustainable, and the entire process of farming and creating alternative meat is unrealistic, unsustainable, and unethical, as we have stated earlier. Our side of the house, on the other hand, wishes to shift towards a more sustainable production where meat is locally produced, meaning only local meats are getting eaten by local people. And it's going to be grass fed and shift towards other types of meat that is more sustainable as well, like chicken and fish. The harms that their side of the house produce is, even if they were to build a synthetic chicken plant, the amount of carbon emissions that is created is just the same as create as farming beef, thus rendering the whole carbon emission thing moot once more. Our side of the house will be better and will be more sustainable than their side of the house. Their side of the house wants to end the industry as a whole. This is unpractical, this is unrealistic, and this will create a death of an industry that will impact a lot of people. Their side of the house proposes what their side of the house proposes in impractical in general. There are millions of people that their lives and their industries thrives over meat, may it be chicken, beef, or even fish. Even if we do what the government proposes by subsidizing them to shift and giving them time, these people live in areas where farms cannot grow. And thus, what we're doing is uprooting them out of their lives. What the government is proposing is total destruction and total disregard over human life in of itself, just for the sake of the feelings of animals, when we're supposed to care about our human lives in general. What they're doing is justifying an unethical practice, unsustainable practice, by saying meat is bad. On the other hand, our side of the house, it will benefit more since for everyone, since we're not taking away people's living, but we also want to be sustainable as well by creating local producers and sustainable meat. That's why our side of the house will win, since we have proof that their practice is even more unethical and they disregard human life and businesses over the feelings of animals. Thank you.